I always thought silence was a form of love. For years, I let the words pass over me like wind against glass, cold, sharp, never enough to crack me open. But that night, something slipped. It was Thursday. I'd come home from work late, as always. My last meeting, a quarterly review for a sustainability startup I advised, had run overtime. I'm a financial consultant by trade, specializing in long-term asset management for legacy clients. Not that my mother ever quite understood what that meant. To her, I just played with money. She was already sitting at the dinner table when I walked in, a bowl of soup in front of her, untouched and now tepid. The kitchen lights were too bright. She insisted on keeping them that way, said dim lights were depressing. I dropped my bag near the bar stool and took off my blazer. "Did you remember to pick up the turmeric?" she asked, without looking up from her phone. I had 3 back-to-back calls. "I'll get it tomorrow," I said, heading toward the fridge. "You always have an excuse." I paused. The fridge was covered in magnets from places she never visited: Prague, Kyoto, Buenos Aires. All mine. All the cities where I'd worked, grown, sacrificed. She sighed loudly, then spooned at the soup. "You know, if you had a husband, maybe he'd pick up the turmeric for you. Or maybe if you had children, you'd remember things like that." There it was. Again. She didn't say it often, but when she did, she delivered it like a court verdict, as if my womb had robbed her of a legacy. Never mind the fact that I bought this apartment outright 4 years ago. $2.8 million, high-rise, 22nd floor, facing English Bay. I paid the property tax, $9,200 annually. I covered her grocery bill, around $1,000 a month, even though she insisted on organic produce and imported teas. And I'd paid for her dental implants last year. $16,800 out of pocket. I'd done all of that. Quietly. Lovingly, I thought. I placed a bottle of San Pellegrino on the table and sat across from her. "I'm not hungry," I said. She squinted at me as if my appetite were the real offense. "You're always tired. Always rushing. What's the point of all this success if you're just a burden to yourself and to me?" The word froze in the air. Burden. I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I didn't remind her that when she had her gallbladder surgery 2 years ago, I'd taken 3 weeks off work and slept on a pull-out chair beside her. That I'd given up a job offer in Zurich, a major one, with a signing bonus of $150,000, because she cried on the phone and said, "What if I die here alone?" I didn't say any of that. Instead, I looked at her face, at the woman who gave me life, but never let me live it fully, and something inside me shifted. Not broke, just slid into place, like a door finally clicking shut. A tear slipped down my cheek. Just one. She didn't notice. She was too busy texting someone, maybe Auntie Grace, maybe one of the cousins who only ever called me when they needed help with tax season. I stood up. "Done already?" she asked, barely glancing up. I didn't answer. I walked to my room, unbuttoning my blouse along the way, not out of weariness, but ceremony. I sat at my desk, lit by the soft amber of the reading lamp. My laptop hummed awake. I opened my email, searched for my broker's name, Karen Fung, and clicked Compose. Subject: Selling the West End condo. Immediate preparation. I stared at the cursor. My fingers hovered for a beat. I imagined Karen's reaction. We'd talked about the market many times before. Vancouver was hot again, foreign investment had cooled off slightly, but the locals were buying up legacy units like gold. Ours would sell in days. My fingers began typing. Karen, I've decided to list the West End property. Please initiate the prep process immediately. Minor staging needed in the common spaces. I'll be moving out shortly. Let's aim for a listing price of $3.1 million. I know that's a bit high, but the view and renovations justify it. Ready to discuss offers by end of week. Best, Jasmine. I hit send. Then I closed the laptop gently, as if sealing a vault. Outside my window, the skyline twinkled, soft yellow squares of other people's lives. Some windows showed families eating together, shadows moving in tandem. Some were dark, and some were like mine, solitary islands in the sky. I used to think I owed my mother everything because she raised me alone, because she worked 3 jobs when I was young, because she said I was her only investment. But I've come to learn that love built on debt is not love. It's just another loan, and the interest compounds. That night, I didn't cry myself to sleep. I took a long shower, ran coconut oil through my hair, and pulled on my thickest pajamas. I lit the eucalyptus candle I kept hidden in the back of my drawer. She thought scented candles were wasteful. Then I sat on my bed, crossed my legs, and breathed. 12 seconds in, 12 seconds out. The air felt different, like the beginning of something that would finally belong to me. It's strange how quickly things move when you finally stop asking for permission. I woke up the next morning with a clarity I hadn't felt in years, not the superficial kind that comes after a good facial or a day off. I mean deep, rooted clarity, like something had shifted beneath my ribs. I didn't need to decide anymore. I just needed to follow through. At 7:48 a.m., I called Karen. She picked up on the second ring. "Jasmine," she said brightly, "you finally ready?" "I'm not just ready," I told her. "I'm done. List it." Karen didn't ask questions. That's what I liked about her. She moved like a woman who understood time was expensive, and I'd already wasted enough of mine. By 10:30, she had the stagers booked. By 3 o'clock, the photographer was walking through the apartment, shooting the sunset angle from the balcony, capturing the gleam of the imported Italian kitchen tiles I'd chosen myself. Another thing my mother hated. "Too cold," she'd said, "like a hospital." By Friday, the listing was live. West End luxury, $3.1 million. Ocean view, fully renovated, turnkey living. The emails poured in. Saturday morning, I brewed myself a coffee. My coffee, the way I liked it, strong and black, no milk to spoil it, and scrolled through the inquiries. 10 serious buyers, 3 over asking price, but one caught my eye. Cassandra Rowe, CEO, Lyris Collective, relocating from Toronto. We'd met at a women's leadership conference in Banff last year. She'd sat next to me during a round table about financial sovereignty and had scribbled notes furiously as I spoke. Afterward, she'd thanked me with tears in her eyes, said she wished she'd had a sister like me. Now here she was, offering $3,250,000, all cash, closing in 30 days. No conditions. I accepted her offer Sunday morning. I didn't tell my mother. Not that day. Not the next. Not even when Karen came by to finalize paperwork and quietly hand me the preliminary transfer schedule. I smiled through it all. Every bowl of soup. Every critique about how I never made time for family. Every passive-aggressive jab about being a career woman with nothing to show for it. Nothing to show for it? I'd paid off over $480,000 in student loans by the time I was 30. Helped my cousin Olivia launch her bakery. She never paid me back. Helped my younger brother Alex put a down payment on a townhouse in Richmond. $220,000 in hard cash. No contract, just trust. And still, every Christmas, my mother fawned over him like he was the crown jewel of the family. Alex, my golden boy brother. He was 10 years younger, reckless, and charming in the way dangerous people often are. In high school, he'd nearly been expelled for selling fake designer sneakers. In his 20s, he'd flipped 3 online businesses, none of which paid taxes. But to my mother, he was a genius, a visionary, a man with a future. I was just Jasmine, the stable one, the fallback plan. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that 2 months earlier, I'd found something in my filing cabinet. A printed email tucked inside a manila folder from when I helped Alex register one of his LLCs. It was from him. To her. Mom, don't tell Jasmine, but I need another $15,000. I'll say it's for the bakery. She won't check. She never does. You know she'll give it if you ask the right way. And beneath it, her reply, "Of course, honey. I'll handle it." She still feels guilty about the Zurich thing. Use that. I had stared at those lines until the ink blurred. They had used me. Not once. Not in some accidental, emotionally complicated way. No, this was calculated. A con. I had been the family ATM, the therapist, the safety net. And when I wasn't enough, they tugged at my guilt like reins on a tired horse. So when I printed out the 30-day notice letter, I didn't tremble. I folded it in thirds, slid it into a white envelope, and left it on the fridge, right beneath the magnet that said, "Family is forever." It was Monday morning. She was still asleep. I placed it there like a quiet goodbye. Then I packed my briefcase and left for work. At lunch, I texted Alex, "Hey, might want to start looking for a place for Mom. I sold the apartment. Closes in 30 days. It took him 20 minutes to respond. Are you serious? You didn't even talk to me? I didn't reply. I turned my phone face down, took a bite of my quinoa salad, and listened to the birds outside my window. That afternoon, he called 5 times. I didn't answer. By evening, I had 17 missed calls and a voice message from my mother. She sounded calm, controlled. Jasmine, I found your letter. I don't understand. Why would you do this? After everything I've done for you. Call me. After everything I've done for you. I poured a glass of Merlot and watched the sun dip behind the skyline. It painted everything in gold, like forgiveness. But I wasn't feeling forgiving. I was feeling aware. And for the first time in years, powerful. Later that night, I opened my journal, the one with the leather cover I'd bought in Florence alone, and wrote down a single sentence. If love is a transaction, then I have paid in full. I underlined it twice. Then I smiled. Because paperwork really does move faster than love. You can't always predict when someone will decide to perform their pain. For my mother, it was at the supermarket. 2 weeks after I left the letter on the fridge, we hadn't spoken. Not really. We were ghosts walking past each other, brushing shoulders in a haunted house neither of us believed in anymore. I worked late, stayed out longer, made sure my keys barely jingled when I came in. She'd started slamming cabinet doors with intention, sighing so theatrically that even the dog from apartment 21A started barking, but nothing prepared me for the ambush in aisle 4. We were in Choice's Market. I had run in to grab some almond milk and a rotisserie chicken, barely brushing my mother's existence from my mind. She was already there. I saw her before she saw me, leaning over a row of apples, complaining to the produce clerk about bruises. I should have turned and left. But I froze. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. The way a deer freezes at the sound of gravel crunching beneath a hunter's boot. Then she saw me. She straightened up, placed her hand on her chest like she was startled, and said in a voice just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "Oh, look! My daughter! The one throwing her own mother out like trash." 3 people turned. A man pushing a cart paused. A woman with a baby blinked. "Excuse me?" I said softly, almost whispering. But she wasn't speaking to me. Not really. She raised her voice, waving her hand for dramatic effect. "Can you believe it? After all I did for her, she's selling the home we live in and giving me 30 days to figure out where to go. 30. That's what I get for being a mother these days." The produce clerk awkwardly rearranged a pile of oranges. I stood there, breath caught between shame and disbelief. Not because I believed her, but because I knew what she was doing. This wasn't about eviction. This was about narrative. She was rewriting the story, erasing the 2 decades of my care and devotion, and replacing it with a cruel little headline. And the worst part? It was working. I saw the woman with the baby give me a look. That polite, tight-lipped smile women give when they think you're the one being unreasonable. The look that says, "You should still be grateful. That's your mother, after all." That's what people forget. Narcissists don't shout. They perform, and they know their audience better than you ever will. I walked out, left the cart where it was. My hands were shaking. At home, I sat in front of my laptop for nearly an hour. I stared at the blinking cursor in a blank document and felt a weight pressing on my chest, not just from the grocery scene, but from the years leading up to it. The birthdays she forgot, the friends she badmouthed, the way she told me I was too emotional after every boyfriend left, or how she said, "No one likes a woman who makes more than a man." And still, I had paid, and paid, and paid. Finally, I opened my browser. Twitter. I typed, slowly at first, "Thread." My mother told a group of strangers I was kicking her out on the street. Here's what she didn't tell them, and I began. I wrote about the gallbladder surgery, the Zurich job offer I declined. I detailed how I'd paid off my brother's first mortgage, $220,000, and never saw a dime back. I wrote about the unpaid emotional labor, the late-night calls, the way she used guilt like a scalpel and always left me bleeding. I even attached screenshots of the emails I'd found, the ones where she and Alex planned to milk me for more money. I didn't use insults. I didn't call names. I told the truth, and I ended with this. Love should not cost your self-respect, and being born to someone doesn't make you their property. I am not her retirement plan. I am not her redemption story. I am her daughter, and I'm done. I closed the laptop, made tea, sat in silence. I didn't expect anything. But by morning, the post had gone viral. Over 40,000 likes. Thousands of comments. Women, so many women, writing from hospital beds, small apartments, retirement homes, therapy waiting rooms. This is my mother. I thought I was the only one. I haven't spoken to mine in 6 years. Thank you for reminding me why. We're not bad daughters. We're just finally choosing ourselves. And then the DMS started coming in. Journalists, therapists, podcast hosts, a woman from the Globe and Mail who said she wanted to write a piece about the silent epidemic of parental narcissism. Even Cassandra, the buyer, messaged me. Just saw your thread. Had no idea. If it's any comfort, the apartment's going to be a space for women's retreats, safe places for healing. I think it's fitting. I cried then. Not because I was sad, but because it was the first time in my life that someone saw the whole picture and didn't ask me to shrink inside it. 2 days later, I ran into Alex. I was leaving the underground parking garage when I saw him leaning against the brick wall near the elevator, arms crossed, that smug look he always wore when he thought he was about to win an argument. "You humiliated us," he said. I stopped, looked at him. Did I lie? He opened his mouth, closed it. "You could have talked to me," he muttered. "I did. For years," I said. "You just weren't listening." He scoffed. "You think you're some kind of hero now? Because you got a few likes on the internet?" "No," I said, walking past him. "I think I'm free." And that, dear listener, that was the moment I knew the game had changed. It wasn't about who looked worse to the outside world. It was about who finally looked inward and said, "Enough." You can feel it in the air, that last flicker of desperation before the mask slips. It was a Wednesday morning, 2 days before the move-out deadline. I was sipping my coffee, dark roast, Colombian, 1 sugar, watching condensation form on the windows. Vancouver had a way of making even the cleanest decisions feel damp with melancholy. I had slept better that week than I had in years, but beneath that sleep was something else, a quiet watchfulness. I knew she wasn't finished. People like my mother don't go gently, not because they're strong, but because they believe the world owes them softness, that you owe them softness, and they will twist your history into pity if you let them. She knocked on my bedroom door, not sharply, not loudly. A gentle, almost trembling knock, as if it were her soul tapping, not her knuckles. I opened the door slowly. She was wearing her softest cardigan, the one she always wore when she wanted to appear fragile. Her hair was freshly brushed, lipstick slightly uneven, and her hands were folded like a child waiting to be scolded. "Can we talk?" she asked, eyes flicking down to my coffee, then back up. I nodded and stepped aside. She walked in and sat on the edge of my bed. I stayed standing. There was a long silence. Then softly, "I didn't mean it." I said nothing. She looked up, eyes glistening, voice trembling just enough. "I was upset. That night. I shouldn't have said what I said. You're not a burden." I leaned against my dresser. My pulse stayed steady, but a single muscle in my jaw tightened. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. "You know I'm just scared," she said. "I say things when I'm scared. I lash out. But I've been through so much." And I thought, maybe you'd understand. You always did before. Ah, there it was. The before. The invisible contract she believed we'd signed at birth. That I would always catch her fall, no matter how many times she pushed me first. I sat on the chair across from her, took a long sip of coffee. Then I spoke. "Mom," I said, voice calm but iron heavy. "You did mean it, and now I do too." She flinched, just slightly, like a crack in a porcelain vase. I stood and walked to my desk. From the second drawer, I pulled out a white envelope. Thick paper, clean edges. I handed it to her. She hesitated, then opened it. Her brows furrowed as she read. "What is this?" "First month's rent," I said. "For a 1-bedroom on 12th and Main. Small but bright. Close to everything. I toured it myself. Move-in ready." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "You're really doing this?" "Yes." She stood up suddenly, voice rising, the cracked porcelain now spiderwebbing fast. "You're just throwing me out? Like I'm garbage?" "No," I said. "I'm giving you a key to a place where you can start over. Same as I'm doing. You want me to hold your hand while you pack, or do you still prefer slamming doors?" Her face twisted. Anger flickered in her eyes, and for a split second, I saw the version of her that always won. The one who cornered me at 16 for dating a boy she didn't like. The one who told my college boyfriend I'd never be able to hold a man if I kept acting so independent. The one who cried at my graduation not out of pride, but because she said the attention should have been on her, too. "You're cold," she whispered. I smiled, not cruelly, just honestly. "No, Mom, I'm finally warm. For me." She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. And maybe she didn't, because for the first time, I wasn't bending. I wasn't apologizing. I wasn't offering a softer version of myself in exchange for a temporary peace. I was done making myself small enough to fit her shadow. She left the room, envelope still in hand. I heard the soft thud of her bedroom door closing. Not a slam, not a cry. Just a quiet surrender. That afternoon, I called the movers, confirmed the schedule, sent Cassandra the final document approvals. She replied within minutes. "All clear. Keys ready. Let me know if you need anything. And congrats, Jasmine. Not just on the sale." That night, I stood alone in the kitchen, my bare feet cold on the marble tiles. I looked around at the place I'd built, the couch I chose, the curtains I hemmed, the table where I ate alone for 10 years. Every object had held a piece of me, and I had been generous with those pieces. Too generous. I touched the fridge one last time. The magnet with the word family had been quietly removed. In its place, a blank space, and somehow it looked cleaner that way. The movers left at noon on Saturday. By 12:05, I was barefoot in my new apartment, standing in the sunlit quiet, wrapped in the hush of a space untouched by history. The floors creaked slightly. The kitchen was half the size of the last one. No ocean view. Just a leafy street, a vintage bakery across the road, and a cat that sat on the windowsill of the building next door like a sentry. And I loved it. It smelled like lavender and fresh paint, like possibility. There were boxes stacked near the door, half labeled, some not at all. But I wasn't in a rush. For once, I had no one to clean up after, no one rearranging my plans with guilt or tears or casual destruction. I opened the biggest box first. Inside, wrapped in 3 layers of tissue, was the photo. Me, age 6, missing my 2 front teeth, wearing a red sweater with a sequined apple, smiling like the world had never taught me how to flinch. That girl had waited 32 years for me to come back for her. I placed the photo gently on the mantel above the faux fireplace. No candles yet, no flowers. Just her, beaming. Then I made tea, opened my laptop, and began to write. The blog had been dormant for years. I used to post travel photos and financial tips back in my 30s, little essays about legacy and purpose. But that day, I opened a new post. No hashtags, no graphics, just truth. The rent is due on respect. I wrote about the emotional mortgage we pay when we're born into someone else's brokenness, about how daughters are too often raised as emotional caretakers, unpaid therapists, invisible scaffolding. I wrote that love is not unconditional when it's transactional. That support isn't real when it comes with chains disguised as gratitude. I didn't name her. I didn't have to. I ended with this. There comes a day when the strongest thing you can do isn't to forgive quietly, or endure longer, or make peace on someone else's terms. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is move out. And if you're reading this from a couch you paid for, in a room you chose, after years of being made to feel like too much or not enough, then you know this already. You don't need permission to be free, only courage, and maybe finally a little peace. I hit publish. Then I closed the laptop, slid it onto the shelf, and let the quiet return. Outside, someone laughed. A deep, belly-full laugh from the bakery patio. A bell rang as a customer walked in. A dog barked twice. Real life was happening all around me, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was watching it from behind glass. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't fantasizing about a better past. I was here, present, home. The next day, I went to the flower market and bought 3 sunflowers, a bundle of eucalyptus, and a small potted rosemary plant. The woman at the stall smiled. "Moving in?" "Starting over," I said. She nodded like she understood. I took them home, arranged them in a glass vase I'd kept from Italy, and placed it next to the photo of little Jasmine, the one who had smiled before the weight ever found her shoulders. I whispered to her, "We made it." And I swear, just for a second, her smile seemed even brighter. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you of a woman you were, are, or are still becoming, go ahead and like the video, leave a comment sharing your own moment of choosing peace, and subscribe to the channel. You're not alone, and you never were.